I was gonna say pigs are flying, hell is frozen, but we haven't actually accomplished it yet.
Yeah, don't get cocky. I mean, we're here, but we haven't done anything.
No, and we can change our minds once again on the Hemi Gremmie. We've started and stopped this project so many times. It's been a scheme of mine since way back when I first bought the thing. It's a 1975 AMC Gremlin with an inline 6-cylinder engine that I bought running and driving for only $700 way back when. And the first time that you saw it was in the episode where we had that whole disaster with the Prius versus the Gremlin, and we ended up spinning off the road while we were flat towing the Prius with the Gremlin, and then we ended up running over the Prius with a tank. It's an epic episode, you've got to see it. And then the Gremlin was in episode 25 of Roadkill, which really tells you how long we've had this thing. The Hemi Gremmie, one of those cars you got to build because you got the name, you got the Gremmie, and you got the Hemi, which is a genuine 426 Gen 2 Hemi, by the way. So there's two things that make it so that we're finally going to make this happen. First of all, we're going to use this 426 Hemi that I've had since about 1997 when they first came out with the Mopar Performance crate engines. I've dyno tested it recently, and it's like the weakest Hemi ever. It's got stock heads, a tiny camshaft, 9-to-1 compression. It makes about 530 horsepower. But really, this is gonna be about the profiling more than about the speed. And the second thing that really is gonna make this happen is we abandon the concept of fabbing suspension onto the Gremmie and moved on to dropping the thing on a complete drag race style Model A chassis. It was custom built by my buddy Sam Strube, who did the whole chassis on my Model A hot rod, if you've seen that. It was long enough to fit a Model A, but it's been shortened to the wheelbase of the Gremlin, which is 96 inches. And what's hilarious is when it was shortened, the ladder bar and the front hairpin got really close, which is super ridiculous looking, but that's what I'm going for. This thing is a street freak, not an all-out drag car, and I want it to look ridiculous, and I want it to sit high, and that's why we've got a straight, not dropped, tube front axle on the thing. And in the back, it's got a 9-inch rear end, coilovers, panhard bar, and of course these absurd ladder bars. Right now I've got the 15x10 Kragers on the back with the N5015s. My ProTrack tires didn't show up for the front, so that's something we're gonna have to work around a little bit. So because this is just a straight frame, we're gonna be able to take the Gremlin, which is a unibody car, cut a bunch of stuff off of it, plop it on here, and my hope is that we're gonna be able to make body mounts just like a Jeep CJ7 would have. A lot of people are gonna wanna call this car a gasser because it has a solid front axle on it. It really isn't. Gassers are called that because there was a drag racing class in the NHRA and other sanctioning bodies that started in the late 50s, and it was like one step up of modification from being a stock class car. And so it was called gas, and so gassers were the cars that raced in it. And by the mid-60s, when they saw the height of popularity, that's when people started putting solid front axles under the car to trim weight and to set them high and to set them nose high for weight transfer that was needed at the time. Now fast forward into the 70s, and guys started taking that look and applying it to muscle cars, and they weren't really drag race cars. They were street posers, and they sat really high, and they were really gnarly, and they usually had crazy paint jobs, wild engine swaps, and the magazines were all over it. Street freak was the thing. This is a street freak, not a gasser. I'm building this to be absurd, to do burnouts, to do road trips, and to be very roadkill. I don't really care that much how fast it is on the drag strip, which is weird for me, but we're going for cosmetics this time.
All right, it's sitting on the chassis. Unless you want the monster truck look, we're now cutting the floor of the car.
Unfortunately, it still sits too high off the ground, and so we're not gonna be able to make body mounts like a Jeep to mount the body on the frame. Instead, we're gonna channel the body over the frame, which means we're gonna cut slots in the floor and drop it over the frame and then weld it to the floor. This is when we find out if we got the slot cut in the right place. We just did about 1.5 feet of the floor to go over the frame.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, like a glove.
Nailed it.
Oh, dude, that's so much better.
Yeah, that needs to go down an inch or two.
So the top of the frame about even with the rocker.
This is gonna look so cool.
Yep.
This looks good. Nice work, fellas.
That was sweet. Good cut. They got it so that the frame like perfectly fits the body. There's a couple of gaps here and there, but nothing that can't be filled with weld. This is cool. I think we can get rid of this. Don't need a wiper motor when you have a Hemi. Just drive faster than the rain. This is gonna be a huge moment, getting rid of these ugly wheels and tires and putting on this. The Krager SS and the ProTrack 235/60. And the key to it is 2.5 inches of back spacing. So what I'm trying to do there is move them outboard. See how this is too sucked in? This is also too short. Part of the key to figuring out our stance on the car is gonna be getting the taller tire on there, which is gonna pick up the front of the car. And then I'm gonna be able to add some leaves to the leaf spring to pick up the front of the car and find out if we've got it as high as we need it to be. Ooh, barely clears there. Yeah, if you can turn that one. And hits there. A little bit of fender rubbing will fix that. Here we go, taller tires. Yeah.
Oh, I kind of like the rake, I gotta be honest. That's cool looking, it's a way better wheel.
You might be right. The wheel definitely saves it because that axle was too narrow. How's that for a wall hanging? Looks like a miniature hood. Ouch.
This is quite a diet you put it on. Look at that.
I'll have to cut those braces back.
This is better than carbon fiber. Look how light it is.
Dun, dun, dun. Back, front. Look at that.
Wow.
That is a lot of Hemi.
That looks good, dude.
Yeah, nailed it.
That looks good.
That is really cool. Okay, I admit one sort of embarrassing thing here is that they're not Dominators, but what can you do?
Lucky to have carburetors.
There you go. That's what you get with the Hemi Gremmie.
Dude. It's perfect.
It's pretty great.
The stance,
Yeah.
the motor.
Really happy with the hood cut. I'm glad we have some structure back here. Pin that thing down. Look at that. I've got Hemi above the hood line, above the fender line.
Man.
That is a cartoon. Wow, look at the organization right there.
Yeah, when the project is this huge, it will not fit on an ordinary pizza box.
Yeah, there's a lot of really big stuff that needs to happen. Remember on the last episode, we were working with the front suspension, we had that transverse leaf spring that was collapsing? Well, it's now actually bent all of its brackets on the front axle from being trailered to Lucky's and back. All the steering's gonna have to change, which is on the same list. Headers are gonna have to get made, wiring, drive shaft, plumbing. Oh, just getting the intake manifold installed and all of the linkage and all the plumbing to that is gonna be big. I have to change out the transmission to a different one that Gearstar sent that's full manual valve body, and everything else is just little itty bitty stuff. Tunnel ram time. We're gonna install the base for real.
Dun, dun, dun. I like this part.
Looking good. This manifold we're installing is an early 70s Y-end. And you could get a lid for these that would take Dominators, but I'm using a couple of 4150s, the smaller footprint carburetor.
Dude, magnesium would be cool.
One of the things about these Hemi manifolds and also about Windsor Fords is because the angle of the manifold sits like this, but the bolts are straight up and down, you have to like tighten them really, really carefully, and you have to go around and around and around and around in circles.
Just when you think they're all tight, go around again.
Okay, we've got the leaf springs mocked up in here, and we actually have weight on the spring by smashing it on the underside of the frame. Everything is supported on jack stands as far as the axle and everything, so the ride height isn't 100% accurate right now, but you can see it's way too high. So we've been able to determine how much that leaf spring is gonna squish and where we want to mount the top of the leaf spring to get our ride height to be correct. Okay, Matt just mocked up these outriggers that are hanging the leaf spring, and we have the full weight on the car, and the stance is actually really good. So I think instead of doing more measuring and thinking and figuring and squaring, we're just gonna weld it in because that's always the best answer. So he's gonna zap, and then we have to start worrying about shocks and steering box and steering column and all that stuff. Now that the leaf springs are hung, we've got the axle centered this way in the vehicle just by taking a bunch of measurements, and now we're setting the caster angle. So if you're looking dead into the side of the car like that, this is the kingpin. You want it angled back like that. That's caster. It's kind of like if you have a shopping cart and one of the front wheels is like wobbling all around, it doesn't have enough caster. If you lay it back just the right amount, it'll go in a straight line. So it's the same thing with front end alignment. So I think we're trying to eyeball about 8 degrees into it. Unfortunately, there's not a real flat spot to measure with a digital angle finder, so this is going to be a little bit of eyeballing. These guys made these in record time, like happened in a day.
Kind of had to. Nobody makes these to put a Hemi in a Gremmie.
So those guys made them, but we're going to have the glory of installing them? Is that what this is?
I helped. I helped.
You helped?
Well, you can tell where I helped. It's a really nice header. Yeah, the one you're holding, that's the one Andrew did. This is the one I did.
Okay, you can tell?
Yeah.
Cool. Almost matching the blueprint. See? Fire.
That's a huge piece of the puzzle done.
Yep, that was big.
I'll start wiring.
I'm excited about my full manual valve body. Thing's gonna bang! Muscle truck is great with full manual. The Gremmie will be better. That's it, right?
I hear clunking. Please work. This is the right trans, right? Because there's 2 of them.
Yeah. Okay, up, up. It's gonna, there we go. The snout is in. Now we need to tilt. This side needs to, okay, we're on. Stop.
Oh, it's really gonna happen finally.
It's really gonna happen finally. Oh. Next fail. The snout's keeping it from pulling forward. It's either hitting those bolts or it's bottoming the snout, one or the other. Okay, coming back out. The torque converter is hitting the bolts that are holding the flex plate to the back of the crankshaft now. Whoa, pouring ATF all over myself. Awesome. We got the transmission all the way up in there and seated against the back of the bell housing, and unfortunately the converter wouldn't slide forward because it's hitting the bolts in the back of the crankshaft, so now we're solving that. There you go. Assemble. Andrew ground a corner off every flex plate bolt, took a lip off the converter, and we think we have our clearance now. Here we go again. Up, up. There we go. All right, that gets bolts in. Once we got it squared, the converter turns freely, and we've got about an 1/8 or 3/16 of pull forward. We did it. Cranking. That's bad.
We got fuel.
You have fuel in the squirters?
Yep.
Okay, plug it in. I'll fire it up and watch the oil pressure.
Okay.
All right, this is gonna be it. Did you plug in the distributor?
I did.
Should run.
Get after it.
Water pump, ignition, start. Hey, it runs.
Dude, it runs.
It's loud.
Wow, that's a bumpy road. That actually rides pretty good.
It could be worse. It's a little jolty. It's very Jeep-like. How's the handling?
Whoa! What are you doing? It's not built for curves, homie. Oh my goodness. I want to live to actually do more burnouts.
Okay.
I was like, that's a corner. Why is he accelerating?
What if it's great?
It's definitely not. It's passable.
Oh, this is the old ridge route.
Yes. Wow, this is a mountain right here.
I am surprised how drivable it actually is.
It's a pretty darn good car for being built in like 10.5 days.
With a bunch of wrong parts that should not be working together. So I really wanted 3 things from this car, which was look amazing, which we nailed.
Yep.
Be pretty drivable, which I think we've already proven it is.
Oh, yeah.
And do hellacious burnouts.
We have not proven that yet, sir.
That's what we haven't proven yet. But we will. And what's the priority here after all?
Smoke. Hit it. Oh my God, dude. That was bananas.
And it serves its third purpose. Yeah! Hemi Gremmie!